I was hiking with a group of friends, well, a coworker and his friends. So we all knew each other through this person. And one of the other people of the group asked me, "Oh, what's your ethnicity?" I responded, "Vietnamese." And then we got into a discussion of, "Did you know Vietnamese people came over by boat? How did your parents come over here?" It made me think, how does one begin to learn one's parents' history? When did I first realize my parents' history? I recognize I didn't learn it from my parents all at once, but rather piecemeal. A story here, a story there. And I hope one day all four of us will be able to piece it all together. But for now, we're just going to have a conversation of what we do know. This is chapter 3, When a Nguyen Met a Nguyen.
Welcome to Growing Up Nguyễn, a story of 4 siblings
holding on to our identity
while fulfilling our parents' dreams.
I'm Hương.
I'm Karin Hạnh.
I'm Hedda Hiếu.
And I'm Ben Hoàng. These are the blessings and challenges of growing up Nguyễn in America.
I think ông ngoại is the person that I know least about out of our grandparents. I think about there's this one time he came over for dinner at our house, and it was just me, my aunt, and ông ngoại. And for some reason, by the time he got here, my aunt had left. And so I was setting up the table, and I called her because by then it was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes that she had been gone. And I was like, where is she? When is she coming back? And she was like, probably not coming home for another hour or two. And first off, I was like, why would you do this to me? Why hast thou forsaken me?
It was like that, huh?
I was like, I guess this is a good time to get to know my grandfather better.
You guess?
And so I asked him what it was like growing up in Vietnam. And he was like, we were really poor back then. And things weren't good. And I was like, okay, what did you do? What else did you do in Vietnam? And he was like, not good times. Not good times. I was like, okay. Okay. What was it like being in the Navy? I remember my aunt had told me that he'd been in the Navy. He was like, yeah, we went on boats and stuff. Really, really hanging me out on a string here, bro. But he eventually did tell me that he was able to bring home food and rations of food from time to time and money home to bà ngoại and my aunt, the family, when he had short breaks from the Navy. And I know at a later point in time, he eventually left Vietnam by boat with 3-4 half of the kids to the U.S.
It was a little less than half here because there's 7 kids, and the 3 kids that he went with was Cậu Khôi, Cậu Khoa, and Yu Hiền. I think a part of me why I remember that is because I know they don't speak Vietnamese as well as the rest of the siblings. Though Cậu Khoa does speak it a little bit better. I think that's just because he's a little bit older. But anyways, even though ông ngoại was working, you're talking about him being in the Navy. Anyone know what bà ngoại was up to?
I think we only really realized how impactful she had been in her village when Hoang and I visited Vietnam again back in 2012. We went to where she had lived, and they told me about when she had passed, when the entire town found out. They all went to church to go pray for her. Do you remember that church, Hoang?
Yeah.
It was not a very big church, but
it was small.
Yeah. They set up chairs and things outside in order to have additional pews. And even then, people were sitting on the ground just on a mat or something like that to pray for her. And I remember going to a house where they showed me the attic where she would hide people from the Viet Cong who were coming around looking for people. She was really well respected and admired because she genuinely cared for her people. And something I learned from my mom during that trip was that when the town didn't have clean water, so bà ngoại was the one who invested in getting a hose to get clean water for everyone.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't really hear that started this part of the story before. So my memories of Bangwai, actually, just growing up with her, she was always investing time in the slow activities, I would say, like cooking. Not the Rachel Ray 30-minute meals, but pho, bún bò Huế. And she would go to the grocery store to pick out the freshest of the best and bring it home and do that kitchen magic she does to make it a meal for our entire family at the end of the day. And she wasn't just caring about people, she was caring about the birds. Do people know what I'm talking about? So she would buy day-old bread and dry this bread out on the roof of our garage, or her garage.
Where you get the best sun, hun.
Indeed. And she would dry out this bread and sun dry it until it was absolutely hard, and we'd take that bread with us to go to Lake Merritt to feed the birds.
Honestly, that was one of my favorite activities. I loved going to Lake Merritt with her and feeding the birds. Like, this is not appropriate now. I'll be telling people we did this, but I love doing that. It was a great time with my grandma, and I think about now and how useless is that? We put bread out to dry for the birds, but I think it shows that she cared a lot, and it was fun for us kids, and that's just how she was. She did it because she cared about everything, from what we put in our mouths to the activities that we could participate in.
And I want to point out that we spent a lot of time with her as a kids, because I think all four of us did, went to Lake Merritt with Bangwai at some point in our lives. Is that true for your childhoods? Oh.
Back then, it was still covered in duck poop as well.
I think it was geese.
Geese.
That hasn't changed. But the reason we spent so much time with Bangwai, or Bangwai was our guardian, is that I was busy working at her tailoring shop. When she came, how she got here was through sponsorship. So, as we were just describing, Bangwai came here with 3 kids first. Actually, I need to talk about that, because when he came here, they had to stop in, I believe, Malaysia, and they were staying at an encampment of some sort, and I think one kid went missing. Maybe it was Kotwang, and he left. Oh, maybe there was 4 kids that went with Bangwai. Now that I think about it, I can't remember. Okay. Well, somebody got lost, and 2 kids had to. So he trusted 2 kids. Okay, 1 kid got lost. Some kid got with Bakta, and Bakta was, going to continue on with the journey, and then would meet with them later. She ended up in the United States. Was still, locating this missing child of his, and Bakta, in the time of waiting, almost put up the kids for adoption. This is like her, second cousins, kids removed, whatever. This is family. She was gonna put them up for adoption. Fortunately, why? This is where the mystery comes in. Reconnected, found them, got the kids back, and settled in his life. Ooh. And the important part is that he settled here and was able to sponsor Bangwai and the rest of the family over to the United States.
Yeah, and Bangwai and Mẹ and
Go
Young and Go Bin. Where those the I
guess we don't know what Kotwang was, the first or the second group.
Yeah. Well, the second group of people, they were sponsored over by Ongwai, and as part of their journey, they had to go first to Thailand, and they had to stay there for a week in, I guess, some sort of camp.
Same, yeah.
And well, one interesting fact about it is that they had to pledge allegiance to Thailand, and they were really strict, like to the flag, and they were really strict about it.
Oh.
It would hit you if you weren't out there.
I did not know that part.
Yeah,
and it was morning and night. I remember it was like 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. at night or something.
Yeah, they had like specific times and I guess punishments too then. But after the week was up, they Mawai and Mea and the other 2 children got on a plane and they went to SF. And Mea, or in Vietnam, there weren't any like videos or any kind of media that was out. I think she saw a picture of San Francisco in a textbook, and she always dreamed of going there to see the city. And
the Golden Gate Bridge, yeah.
Oh, the Golden Gate Bridge. And well, now this was her chance to go see it. She was going on a plane, going to San Francisco, basically, and she would be able to see the Golden Gate Bridge. But she got so sick on the plane. This was her first time on the plane, and she was so sick. She did not like it at all. And she promised. I know.
Sound effect too.
And she made a promise to herself that she would never get on a plane again because she did not enjoy the ride. But she made it to San Francisco and she saw the Golden Gate Bridge. And now she lives in Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco.
I always joke with her, how many times have you actually seen the bridge since you've lived here? The other part, I get emotional like thinking about this. I mean, even though there's like the details are blurred, but maybe that's why the details are blurred, because it's such an emotional journey to think about how ông nội came here. Ông ngoại, sorry. And our uncles and aunts being separated. And there are only 1, 6, 7, a family of 9 of a million people fleeing the country. Yet we ended up here. It's just, how did the circumstances put us here? How did the alignment work? I don't know. We can really recognize how lucky we are to be where we are.
I remember having that realization also when I was part of the Spanish club at UC Davis.
President of the Spanish club?
Yes, when I was president of the Spanish club at UC Davis. And one of my practicing professor partners, who I told that my parents had fled the Vietnam War, had this reaction. And he said that, when you say war, you know that war is not a good thing. And there are a lot of crappy things that come out of as a result of war, as we can tell also from my conversation with my grandpa. And yet this is the first time I told him that my parents came over because of the war. And he was like, wow, your life would not be the same if they did not come over here. And me, yeah. Yeah, no. But it was the first time someone was recognizing it, besides myself, how supremely different our lives would have been and how difficult the navigation of our parents through the entire coming to the US from Vietnam to build a life for 4 kids, and for them to end up going to universities. Like, how incredible that journey actually is. And that's what really makes me think about Bo too.
Yeah, he left Vietnam through the means of, pursuing an education. He was 19 when bà nội said, you're going off to school outside of the country.
Well, let's backtrack because there is a little bit of history there. Well, first of all, ông nội is a diplomat, or was a diplomat. And, well, that's the word I heard from Chu Khoi. Cannot confirm if this is true. But since he was on the inside, quote, unquote, he was able to hear news about the Vietnam War and the Cộng sản, or Viet Cong, I guess those are used interchangeably, that were approaching.
And Cộng sản would refer to like communism, and Viet Cong would be the folks. Is that right?
Yeah.
And Cộng sản would refer to like communism, and Viet Cong would be the folks. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they would be like the supporters of communism. Viet Cong. VC. Yeah, he wrote letters about it when he was in the United States against it. He was very against it.
I mean, he did send also Bo out of the country.
Yeah. Pretty much all of his kids by the end. So.
Yeah, well, with his information, ông nội came back to the family, and bà nội and ông nội decided to send Bo to Germany so that he could escape the war.
And I want to also mention that it was, like you said, it was ông nội, bà nội together, because bà nội, even though she was, you would say that she's the stay-at-home mom with the 9 kids, she was a savvy businesswoman. She was maintaining a merchant. She was being a merchant, turning the downstairs into a little shop while the kids and the whole family lived upstairs. And she was making connections with people. And it's because of this, her quickness, her business acumen, that was able to put together what the information that Ông Nội knew and have the resources to get Bố outside of Vietnam to not be a soldier in the war, so that he could, have a different opportunity.
A chance at life, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think it seems easy to say like, oh, she just became a merchant and she sold things. But I always remember towards the end of her life, she had Alzheimer's disease. And so she would repeat a lot of the same stories over and over. And there are a lot of people, like, she didn't recognize some of her like grandchildren and things like that from time to time. But the person that she always remembered was her husband, Ông Nội. And she would tell this story over and over, that she would have to take an hour-long walk all the way to jail because our grandfather was jailed for his beliefs, and she would bring him food every day for lunch, walk there for an hour, and then walk all the way back home, and then still have her shop that she's running, still feeding all of the kids and things like that. So it really wasn't an easy time for anybody. But I mean, that's just who she was. That business acumen, that savviness, she got over to Germany even with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful and shows how strong she is. And also, I guess continuing the story with Bố is that he went to university to study and he had to get accustomed to German life. Big shout out and thanks to the Winkler family in Großgranau. I hope I pronounced that right. And the Winkler family really helped him get used to German customs, the language, the food. Additionally, he also studied mechanical engineering in Frankfurt.
Yeah. So he did that after, getting accustomed to a lot of that German culture. And I think about that a lot because I've been curious about what was German life starting really young. I remember writing or helping to write letters to Karin. I remember tracing the words that Bo wrote and, asking a little bit, oh, why do you write this? Why do you write that? Later on, I also wrote letters to my first grade teacher. So it turns out she's also spoke German. Bo would write letters to Mrs. Melander and I would trace it. I don't exactly know what I was writing, but I like to think that maybe I wrote something and he translated it. I can't remember at this time, but if Miss Melander, you're out there and you have copies of this letter, I would be very curious to know what I was writing in German.
We'd all be very curious.
Yeah.
I would say it was the first time that I got exposure to being multilingual. I was already speaking Vietnamese, I was learning English in school, and here I was, my dad's giving me exposure to German. I did wonder why he didn't teach me to speak German, but that came a little bit later when I decided to study German in college. I was going for the easy A. It was put a lot of effort into A. Let me just say that. German is a hard language. I could understand why my dad didn't really teach me how to speak it. The words are hard, the sentence structure. So I can't even imagine him going to Germany without a dictionary or without Google Translate.
Yeah, I mean, I think to really emphasize that is that like you went on your trip to Germany.
I was solo.
On a scholarship. Solo. He was also been on an international trip to Mexico. And I've had a couple trips internationally as well.
Couple trips.
Not to flex, but no.
Hannah also had a solo trip, right?
When?
Colorado?
Oh, that's like in the state.
Oregon.
People were speaking the same language as I was. It's different.
I'm pretty sure you said there was culture shock, though.
But to emphasize is that we all had like preparation going into it. We like either studied the language or we knew we were gonna go there and what to expect. But Bo went to this like, I guess, not knowing anything at all. He just went there. He did not know the language. Didn't even know that what he was going to study or what university he was going to get into. Did not have dictionary, like you said. No Google Translate, y'all. He was out there, like without being prepped at all, and that's got to be hard.
Man, like, and as you're describing it, it's like he was alone.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been tough. And I see that's why the Winkler family was so important to him. They were a family away from home. And I think about a lot how Karin was teaching me when I was there. I had a baseline and she was helping me get a better understanding of the language, but also the culture. When we were eating food, she explained the German customs, like how to, where you place your hands, how you set up the table. She was giving me history along with the language. We didn't really do this in Vietnamese culture, but I think we can parallel that a lot with how we learn our history in school or English language. Like we read books and we discuss it. So it's like you're practicing your English, but you're also, being a critical thinker at the same time. And that's how Karin approached teaching German to me, and I'm sure to Bo too. So I really see how Karin gave this baseline for his growth.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me was I can see the parallels, like Hương venturing out solo to visit Karin, and then Bo visiting Karin as well. It felt like it was like two different timelines that were happening at the same time because they were both like on their own solo path, and they had met up with this like same person in history, and they had like I could imagine her teaching you, showing her, her showing you and teaching you, and the same way that she was showing and teaching Bo, like many of these stories, many of these foods, many of these customs, and that felt like such a rich memory to me.
If we don't ever get to interview Karin, I think I understand why Bo named you Karin. If anyone gets to meet the Karin Winkler, I think we have a bit of her soul right here. And just like as you're speaking of it, it's exactly how I feel like Karin would like views the world and views relationships with people.
Just the way things are interwoven so masterfully.
Mhm.
Good job, Karin.
Karin Hạnh.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. So later on, Bo left Germany to reunite with his family in Texas. This goes part with that, like part where we're still piecing together history. I don't know how we got each other's addresses because there wasn't a FaceTime or Google Hangout meets, or you paid a fortune to just make an international phone call. I'm not sure they had phone calls back then.
I'm sure they had phone calls.
Okay.
Well, I just don't know how good they were.
Plus, it probably cost a lot of money. Let's
Or
face
even
it.
got each other's addresses to send mail.
Yeah, we don't. How did they even connect? I don't know how they connected.
Yeah.
But Bo made it to Texas and reunited with family.
That's right.
Go Longhorns.
Yes. Bo decided to study again, and he went to University of Texas Austin. Longhorns. Hello.
I know he had studied mechanical engineering in Germany, but when he came here, he switched his. He would have. I think he would have wanted to pursue a higher degree in mechanical engineering, but because of the language barrier, he went with studying German literature. Man, our dad is smart.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, he had told me a part of this story. There's a test you have to pass. It's called the TOEFL.
The TOEFL. It's
Oh.
a English proficiency exam for higher education or like the university system.
Great, that's it. Yeah, that's perfect. That's it. So in the university system, he actually didn't pass this the first time, and so he had to retake it. And this was the main thing that actually stopped him from pursuing higher education because he had to learn the English language first. That on its own was hard enough, so he majored in German literature instead.
Mm-hmm. And it was fine. He learned English while working the side jobs while he was
His side hustles.
I mean, I guess if you want to call his side hustle, being a cashier at Burger King or being a janitor. But maybe doing those jobs, is that why he doesn't like cleaning at home?
I don't know. He was pretty excited when we got that vacuum. He used it immediately.
He was very excited, but then he had to charge it.
I remember that.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's still part of the mystery. They were in Texas, and being with his brothers there, they later reunited the entire family in Seattle. And Bo's one of 9 siblings, all relocated to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
How the heck did they do that?
Mm.
Oh.
That's another mystery. You know, as we're talking about this, and I know some of us have heard these stories, some of us haven't. It's like we have these tidbits. It just reminds me of the time I was volunteering at Alta Bates when I thought I wanted to be in the medical field.
Oh.
It was not exciting times. But at the volunteer or registration desk, so we were doing the welcoming table, registration table, was another Vietnamese lady, and we had the same shift. She was already working and she wanted to go back to school to become a nurse. Fast forward, she did not do that, but that's another story. We were just talking a little bit about our history, and she wants to know how did my parents come here? And as I told her that, what I told her was, what I knew. Oh, my dad went to Germany, and then he studied mechanical engineering, came to the United States, got another degree, reunited with his family, and they moved to Seattle. She's like, "Oh, what year?" What? I was like, even as you guys realize, as we're telling the stories, we have not put a timestamp on this because I think it's just not clear to us all the times, the dates and the years.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I mean, I think, does it matter? But at the same time, it is. It does matter. Like, how the timelines meet up? And our grandparents really put us in favorable circumstances. And how do you just move from Austin to Seattle?
Yeah, I honestly don't know how they relocated.
Those are, I don't know back then, but I think right now they're like pretty big cities too.
Yeah.
Did Bo ever tell you that he as a family they opened up a pho shop? Can someone verify that?
What?
I'm gonna say I think I heard it here first.
Oh, really? No, I heard that. That's true. No one liked it. It was hard, and nobody wanted to work in the restaurant anymore. So that was that.
Okay.
And that is why all the guys in the family became engineers. I do know that Bo, living in Germany for most of his life, was a little bit disconnected from his brothers and sisters, not because of not like they were distant, but just because there was like a certain part of his life experience that is just so different from the rest of them. And I don't know if that continued or because he later moved to Oakland.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, man, met her wish. She didn't want to go on a plane again. Bo came to her.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to add in real quick that what we mentioned, Bo is part of one of 9 siblings. Mea is part of one of 7 siblings. So I just remember doing a family tree for freshman year in high school, and I had a hard time fitting all those names on the paper. I don't know about y'all.
Oh yeah.
That's what poster boards are for.
Oh, my bad. But seriously, it's like so we have so many aunts and uncles and cousins, also potential cousins that we might not know we have. Like we don't know. And I had such a hard time remembering all the names and who's who. I think the distance between Oakland and Seattle definitely made it harder for me to remember things for both sides.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone know how Bo met?
Do you want to tell the story, Hugh?
You mean how she had 3 suitors?
Yeah, I heard that story too.
I only heard about it because I had to interview her from a high school class assignment thing. And so I asked her how she met Bo and what the relationship was like and what dating is like and things like that. And she told me that essentially she had 3 suitors. One drank too much. He pretty much was an alcoholic. The second one done by, which is pretty much gambled too much. And the third one was kind of lazy, but the lazy person was the best out of the 3, and that just happened to be our dad. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
How did she find out he was lazy?
I think that came when they first met, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
there was a matchmaker, right, that connected our dad to our mom. And prior to meeting, they had a phone call, and he asked her, it's like, "Oh, do you need anything?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, bring me a pair of tailoring scissors." And I remember these tailoring scissors to be pretty special because they had to cut through like thicker fabric, and also needed to be like left hand because our mother is left-handed, which I think might be a rarity at that time, or a little hard to find, anyways. And he was like, "Okay," and he came down, didn't bring the scissors.
What? Wow.
But apparently they hit it off, and end of story, and as Hugh says, pop, 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 pop.
That was a lot of pops.
that's one for each
of
of us. I mean,
Exactly.
Man, we a groupie. I mean, as we put together the pieces of our history and what we know, and like even as he was telling how bố mẹ met, I was like, I guess I kind of knew, but maybe it just gets lost in all the information. That's why we're recording this podcast. Do you think knowing this history from ông bà ngoại, ông bà nội, like really help you now with anything?
Oh, yeah, I think just it's a key part of actually knowing your story. For me, it was me being young, not not thinking it was important, that I just wanted to be American, and this pressure to conform and assimilate. But the other key part of it, if I was willing and ready and able to accept all this information, then the version of me that would come out after this would have been very different. I wouldn't have been that kid that said, "I don't wanna go to Vietnamese school anymore." My dad saying, "Okay," but still enrolling me in next year's Vietnamese school. Um, does anyone else wanna weigh in?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I think that if I knew all this history earlier as a kid, I'd be even more proud of being Vietnamese, and like knowing that like my family went through this and this is who I am because of it. Like hell yeah, I am Vietnamese.
I think of it, your history is like this little seed, right? And you can only or seed of being prideful or being proud, and it only grows. And that your history is like the water that waters and allows it to germinate. I was trying to
Wow.
be like Karin right there. I don't know if that worked.
maybe let Hatton explain it. Anything you want to add, Hatton?
Okay, let me Imma draw a picture. Just stick with me, alright?
I told you.
Yeah, so I always imagine, like, you have the waves lapping against you, against the seashore, and then you stick a stick in the sand, and you hope it stays upright. You hope it stays afloat. But the thing is the waves keep coming. They get stronger. They might not touch quite the stick, but assimilation will always keep coming for you. And you're in a culture shock. This is that Americanness. This is what we receive every single day. And at the end of the day, the stick can only stay there, remain there for as much ground that is it's set upon. And that is the ground of which your parents have brought over.
Wow. I actually closed my eyes and just visualized the whole thing too.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I have some questions, like why are we, only talking about the history now? I mean, I know we talk about here and there, but we ask our grandparents, we don't always get the full picture. I mean, I'm sure it's hard. Is it difficult? I mean, it's difficult to speak about. It's emotional. But is it also because we don't often ask them? Um, or maybe it's a combination of both. But as we do this, it's like we're setting that foundation, like you said, right? Like the sand, right?
Yeah.
We need to get good sand in there. What kind of soils? Could you tell us, Miss Soil Scientist?
Well, sand you need sand is like straight up sand.
And with that, we'll close. So, I mean, we'll close and lead us into the next episode where we talk more of the things that like those like things that come at us, those waves that hit us every day that pushes against the sand. And we have to know a little bit of who we are, our history, to be able to move forward. So here's the groundwork for all the listeners and for all us together collectively sharing our history to set that foundation. And then let's start to explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. No, and we'll cut there.
See you next
time.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Growing Up Nguyễn. We'd love to hear what you think about our episode today, so please reach out to us through our website at www.growingupnguyen.com or follow us on Instagram at growing.up.nguyen. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. We're Hương, Hạnh, Hiếu, and Hoàng, and this is Growing Up Nguyễn.